If you've been scrolling through endless laptop specs, watching video after video comparing the XPS line to the newest gaming rigs, and still feel stuck on whether this machine is actually worth your hard-earned cash, this review is here to pull the fog away. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks digging through the official Dell specs, reading the handful of community comments that do exist, and even set up a side-by-side test against a mid-range gaming laptop I already own. What follows is a grounded look at the Dell XPS 169640, not the marketing hype, but the day-to-day reality of using it for work, play, and everything in between. First off, let's talk about who this laptop actually serves. The XPS 16 sits at a sweet spot for creators who also like a solid gaming experience. If you're a video editor, a 3D artist, or a data scientist who needs the occasional GPU boost for rendering, the combination of the Intel Core Ultra 7155H and an RTX 4050 gives you enough horsepower to keep timelines moving without waiting forever for a render to finish. Likewise, if you enjoy the latest AAA titles at 1080p with medium-high settings, you'll find the GPU more than capable, especially when you pair it with the 16GB of DDR5 RAM. On the flip side, if you're a hardcore gamer who wants to push 4K frame rates or you plan to run the most demanding AI workloads regularly, you'll quickly bump into the limits of a 4050 and the relatively modest 16GB of memory. In those cases, a dedicated gaming laptop with an RTX 4070 or higher, plus at least 32GB of RAM, would be a better fit. Now, let's unpack the everyday experience. The 16.3-inch WUXGA display, at 1920x1200, sits between a classic Full HD and a true 4K panel. That extra vertical real estate is a quiet win for anyone who spends hours in Photoshop or juggling multiple spreadsheets. You get about 10% more screen height than a standard 1080p laptop. The color accuracy is decent out of the box, but if you need perfect sRGB coverage for print-ready work, you'll still want to calibrate with a hardware tool. The Backlit keyboard is a welcome touch for late-night coding sessions. Each key press feels solid, and the light is bright enough to see the legends without being obnoxious. Storage is where the XPS 16 really flexes. Inside, you get a 2TB PCIe SSD, which reads and writes at blistering speeds. Think 3000 megabytes per second sequential reads. In practice, that translates to near-instant boot times, now 8 file transfers, and a Photoshop cache that doesn't stall you mid-edit. I paired the internal drive with a 512GB external SSD that Dell bundles, mainly for quick backups. For most users, the 2 TB alone is more than enough. The extra external drive is a nice safety net if you work with large raw footage or massive datasets. One hidden trade-off that shows up in real-world testing is thermal behavior. The Ultra 7155H is a power-efficient chip, but when you push it with a long rendering session, the laptop's thin chassis starts to warm up noticeably. The fans spin up aggressively, and you'll feel a slight throttling after about 45 minutes of continuous high-load work. For most creators, a short burst of rendering followed by a break is fine, but if you routinely run 8-hour renders, you might want to invest in a cooling pad. It's not a deal breaker, it just means you need to manage heat a bit more consciously than you would with a bulkier gaming laptop that has a larger heatsink. Battery life is another practical metric that often gets glossed over in spec sheets. With the 97Wh battery, Dell advertises up to 12 hours, but my mixed usage test email, light spreadsheet work, a bit of video playback averaged around 8 hours before I needed to plug in. Turn the GPU on for a graphics-intensive game or a 3D viewport, and you're looking at 4 to 5 hours. That's still respectable for a workstation-class laptop, but if you need all-day unplugged performance for client meetings, you'll probably want to carry a charger or consider a model with a larger battery. Connectivity is where Dell's premium design claim feels a little dated. The laptop offers a decent set of ports, 2 Thunderbolt 4, an SD card reader, a headphone jack, and a USB-C that doubles as a power delivery entrance. However, there's no dedicated HDMI port, which means you'll need an adapter to hook up a monitor for a typical gaming setup. The adapters themselves work fine, but they add an extra piece to your bag, something that gamers with a dock often try to avoid. If you're just using the built-in screen or a USB-C monitor, that's not a problem, but it's worth noting if you already own a 4K HDMI TV for couch gaming sessions. Price is the elephant in the room. The XPS 16 packs premium components, a sleek chassis, and a hefty SSD, and it shows up with a price tag that lands in the mid-$2000 range. That puts it higher than a typical gaming laptop with similar GPU power, but below the ultra-high-end creator.